Howdy, 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 my name is Anasha Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. This episode might sound a little weird because I decided to try recording it with the microphone inside of a box to see if that would dampen some of the echo of where I'm recording it at. I can't quite tell, but it might sound noticeably different from yesterday. So, in this episode, we're going to be checking out cochlear cicadas, stationary ATV, matter displacing flashlight, the sound, and universal simulator. And that one already sounds like it's probably going to be a Keter. So, Cochlea, well, they're Euclid, and I don't think I like the implication of what these things are. There's a picture of a partially buried instance located at Wenshu Monastery in Chengdu, China. I'm almost positive I said that wrong. So, SCP-1186 instances under Foundation custody are to be held in individual insect containment units at Site Blank. Each unit is to be constructed to resemble the human auditory system. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to like this one. The maximum number of SCP-1186 instances permitted in Foundation captivity is 140. Excess instances are to be incinerated. 140 additional units are to be made available as reserve habitats for 1186 instances. Civilians identified as hosts of 1186 are to be taken under Foundation custody. Instances which are attached to hosts are to be extracted via invasive surgery. Affected civilians are to be placed under observation for a period of up to 2 weeks, after which interrogation and amnestic treatments are to be given. Description: SCP-1186 refers to a species classified under the family Cicadidae with a mean body length of 2.5 millimeters. To date, all known instances remain in their nymph stage and show no signs of metamorphosis typical of other members of cicadas. To the Foundation's knowledge, no 1186 larvae or imago are known to exist. In addition, dissection of 1186 indicates the absence of sexual organs. Uniquely, it consumes endolymph from human cochlear ducts. Endolymph from several species of mammals, e.g. cattle, are acceptable substitutes in place of human endolymph. As such, 1186 physiology is optimized for the extraction and consumption of human endolymph, such as an elongated and retractable proboscis to puncture human skin and a digestive system specialized in breaking down substances with a high potassium concentration. Why don't they just give it bananas? However, 1186 is known to survive without consumption of endolymph or any other forms of nourishment. Due to the loss of endolymph, hosts regularly experience deafness and balance disorder. After occupying the human ear for a period of 1 week, 1186 will begin emitting vibrations directly to the skull via bone conduction. These vibrations are then interpreted as the chanting of various Mahayana Buddhist sutras. Said chants include the Amitabha Sutra, Heart Sutra, Lotus Sutra, among others. See document 1186, whatever that means, for a complete list of sutras. Narrated in respective host's arterial language. These chants are the only sounds constantly perceived by hosts despite any auditory impairment on the host's part. These chants are inaudible in environments with sound levels of at least 50 decibels, but hosts are known to suffer from afflictions such as headaches and nausea in such environments. In 2% of known cases, non-lethal damage to host nervous tissues is present. Conversely, in environments with sound levels below 50 decibels, the severity of the aforementioned afflictions tends to subside and audibility of 1186 sounds increases. SCP-1186 was discovered in Chengdu, Sichuan Province, China on blankety-blank 2007, where they were distributed by the new religious movement Ascetics to Heaven's Pillar, a Mahayana Buddhist-inspired religious movement known for its veneration of figures such as victorious fighting Buddha, cleanser of the altars, gold-bodied Arhat, and dragon horse of the 8 heavenly sections, to its followers as an initiation rite. In cooperation with local law enforcement units, a crackdown on Ascetics to Heaven's Pillar and its followers recovered approximately 500 SCP-1186 instances and halted distribution. 100 of such instances were kept for study at Site Blank, while the remaining instances were incinerated. Addendum 1. Interviews with captured ascetics to Heaven's Pillar followers suggest that the Wenshu Monastery in Chengdu is a gathering point for said members. On blankety-blank 2007, Mobile Task Force Upsilon 4 Hot Iron Strike was dispatched to raid temple grounds. Large populations, in excess of 5,000, of SCP-1186 instances were found during said raid. 40 of them were found at the Wenchu Monastery. 40 of them that were found there have been taken for study, while the remainder was terminated by incineration by MTF-Y4. Highest concentration of the instances centered around a human cadaver seated at the lotus position and dressed in robes typical of the Tang Dynasty, Bhikkhu. Designation of a fully ordained monk in Buddhism. The cadaver has also been confiscated by the Foundation, tentatively classified as AI blank, and pending further research. A profile for AI blank is as follows. Item description: a preserved human cadaver dressed in Tang Dynasty era Bhikkhu robes. Radiocarbon dating estimates the cadaver's year of death as circa 620 to 680 CE. Despite its age, no signs of decomposition are found. Mechanism of preservation is unknown. Date of recovery blankety blank 2007. Location Chengdu, Sichuan Province, China. Current status kept at anomalous items wing and reliquary site blank. Okie dokie. So it doesn't sound like they're really technically hurting anybody, and they might actually keep corpses from not disintegrating, decomposing. I don't know. Stationary ATV. It's safe and also sounds probably like it's useless, unless it's like a stationary bike. SCP-1187 is to be stored in a remote, above-ground enclosure 5 kilometers from Site 19, with a staff of 2 armed guards and 1 Level 1 researcher. 1187 should remain inverted upon its transportation trailer at all times when not being tested. The subject's ignition key, designated 1, is to be stored in the office of the Level 3 Director at Site 19 overseeing 1187, and is available upon written request. Testing must be conducted no less than 10 kilometers from any Foundation facility or population center. It is to be removed from its trailer and operated by a disposable dude in the center of a 500-meter cleared circle. All security and research personnel should remain at the edge of the perimeter, directing and observing the test remotely. Description: SCP-1187 is a blue 2006 Cosmo 150cc all-terrain vehicle. It was sold and delivered to blankety-blank, South Carolina via an anomalous online merchant site. The seller has yet to be located. The owner's initial test ride resulted in an anomalous incident which was suppressed in public media as a powerful but isolated earthquake. When the accelerator is engaged, 1187 remains stationary while the surface beneath its wheels shifts horizontally towards the rear of the vehicle at an increasing rate of speed. 1187 is capable of dragging a 3-meter wide by 15-centimeter deep strip of terrain at speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour. This effect extends to approximately 250 meters in front of the vehicle and 50 meters behind. Continued operation will shear an increasing amount of material from below the top layer, eventually excavating a furrow and depositing it to the rear of 1187. Manipulating the steering column will rotate 1187 and shift the area of influence. Applying the brakes will slow and eventually cease the effect. Operating 1187 in the vicinity of buildings or other above-ground structures and objects is exceedingly dangerous, as mass above the driving plane is not arrested by braking. Okay, so it's just an ATV that when you rev it up, instead of it going anywhere, it just makes the ground move like a cartoon. Alright, so that brings us to matter displacing flashlight. Too bad I couldn't do these ones yesterday like I considered doing, because then we would have had a cursed kaleidoscope and a cursed flashlight in the same episode. That would have been nice. So, it's safe, supposedly. SCP-1188 is stored in a secure locker in Site blank with its batteries removed. SCP-1188's batteries may not be inserted within 100 meters of Site blank's outer walls, and all testing is to be performed at least this distance from any personnel or structures not involved in testing, and under no circumstances should 1188 be pointed at a living organism unless this is specifically part of a test. 1188's batteries are to be promptly removed at the conclusion of testing. I can only assume this is one of the SCPs they've tried on the unkillable reptile. I never went back to finish reading what they've done to that thing. I still want to. I haven't even done it on my own time because I thought I'd still be doing a video of it. Anyway, description. SCP-1188 appears to be a standard black blankety-blank brand flashlight manufactured somewhere, Inc., circa 1983. Its construction and appearance are unremarkable, and it displays an amount of wear appropriate for its age. 1188 accepts ordinary D batteries, activating via a toggle button. When active, instead of producing a beam of light, it temporarily displaces matter in a truncated cone originating from the bulb end of 1188. The far end of the cone is 21.2 meters from the end of 1188 and 2.2 meters wide. Matter within the cone appears to have been completely eradicated, leaving a cone-shaped hole through whatever 1188 is being pointed at. It can be freely redirected, causing the hole to shift. Matter which is no longer being displaced reappears, apparently unharmed, and switching it off causes all displaced matter to reappear. 1188's bulb remains unlit while operating, though its anomalous effects disappear if the bulb is removed. 1188's bulb functions normally when used in other flashlights. Test 1, date something something something. On a tree outside site blank. Shining 1188 on the tree appears to cut a section out of the trunk, completely bisecting it. The top of the tree does not collapse despite no apparent means of support. The internal structure of the tree is clearly visible. When the beam is moved up and down the trunk, causing the hole to move up and down, but without apparent harm to the tree itself. Test 2, the ground outside site blank. 1188 carves a deep hole in the ground, allowing researchers to see into the ground. As 1188 does not shed light like a normal flashlight, it is difficult to see into the hole unless it is aligned with the sun. With the hole at an angle, researcher blank walks on the undisturbed ground above the displaced hole with no ill effect. Test 3, subject video camera. The video camera is set to record and then displaced using 1188. Upon return, video shows a view of a curved wall believed to be the inside of a silo. Test 4, date blankety blank blank. Disposable personnel 16621. He is restrained and his hand is illuminated by 1188, developing a circular hole through it and exposing the internal structure of his head at the edges of the hole. Upon witnessing this, he screams, but is found to be uninjured, and the hole in his hand is restored when the flashlight is turned off. 1188 is moved to a greater distance in order to create a larger area of displacement, and various areas of 16621 are displaced beginning with his extremities. No ill effects are apparent, although he finds the process very distressing. Displacing his head for several seconds causes him to vomit upon his return. He attributes this to vertigo, as his head was approximately 15 feet above the ground and facing straight down when displaced, and the sudden shift was very disorienting. He reports seeing the same or similar building as the video camera and identifies it as an empty grain silo. Subject, GPS tracking beacon. Results, tracking beacon is able to acquire a good signal and reports its location as a rural area outside blank England. Foundation agents are deployed to secure the area. Team blank mission report. Grain silo found at indicated location. Area surrounding the silo is a farm in extreme disrepair, no inhabitants. When activated, the entire cone of matter displaced by 1188 is visible in the air in the exact center of this silo. If you shine 1188 at the ground, you get a 50 or 60 foot cone of dirt hanging in the air. If you move 1188 around, the cone hanging in the air doesn't move, but you can see its contents changing. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Agent Blank volunteered to have the thing shined on him. Because the small end of the cone is at the bottom and he was looking at it when we switched it on, his upper body was hanging in midair staring down at the ground. He could see his own torso cut open and showing his guts and everything, but then he fell down and his head came back. He threw up all over the place, can't say I blame the guy. Okay, addendum. D16621 became extremely ill 48 hours after exposure with severe nausea, vomiting, and anemia, dying 2 days later due to multiple organ failure. Agent Blank's symptoms were similar but much more acute, with rapidly worsening neurological problems resulting in death 6 hours after exposure. 1188 is no longer to be used on living organisms. Addendum 2. Careful study has revealed that displacement via 1188 causes microscopic damage to material along the edge of the displaced region. The damage is extremely small scale, disrupting a small percentage of the molecules along the edge. For bulk materials, the damage is inconsequential. Displacing a volume of water breaks an infinitesimal fraction of it into its component, hydrogen and oxygen, which has a negligible effect. For living organisms, damaging even a small percentage of the DNA, enzymes, cell walls, and so forth can cause catastrophic damage. The damage is not actually caused by ionizing radiation, but the type of damage is very similar and the resulting symptoms therefore strongly resemble acute radiation syndrome. As D16621's head was displaced all at once, but Agent Blank's head actually slid through the edge of the displaced region, Agent Blank developed severe neurological symptoms while 16621 did not. Displacing an entire body at once with no part of the body crossing the edge of the displaced region should avoid this sort of damage in the future. Well, dang. And that one's probably safe because it's a flashlight and doesn't do anything as long as nobody picks it up and turns it on. Next up is the sound. Okay, the sound is Euclid. I hear a lawnmower. I don't think that's the sound though. 1189 is to be kept in a soundproof steel box measuring 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. Why not just say 1 meter cubed? Maybe the person who wrote this doesn't have a cube button at their disposal. I know I don't. Testing of SCP-1189 should be performed in a soundproof room with at least 2 armed guards stationed outside at all times. Personnel in contact with 1189, as well as security personnel present during testing, must be equipped with earplugs or other sound dampening devices with a sound transmission class of 40 or above. Note, no longer in effect, see Addendum 1. Well, we'll see it when we see it. SCP-1189 is a sound, measuring an average of 40 decibels, accompanied by a pale green glow. It has no discernible physical source, though it appears to originate from the small area at the apparent center of the glow. Due to the effects of hearing 1189, knowledge of the sound produced is limited to sound level meter readings. The readings appear to resemble those generated by speech, though no correlation to any known language has been found and no pattern has been observed. Note, see Addendum 1. Is Addendum 1 even in here? Description. Well, no, we're already on the description. I just saw Addendum 1 twice. SCP-1189 appears to be a self-propagating sound. Subjects that hear 1189 become entirely unresponsive for periods of time ranging from 15 minutes to just over 2 hours. Upon emerging from this state, affected subjects appear frantic and immediately attempt to cause others to hear it. If resisted, affected subjects become violent. During data expunged, Agent Blank was accidentally exposed to 1189. Agent shot and killed his partner, Agent Blank, as well as 3 security personnel and a level 1 engineer performing maintenance on 1189's containment. Agent was killed by security personnel while attempting to force entry into the surveillance room for floor 27. Agent was holding a field tape recorder which contained a recording of 1189. SCP-1189 was discovered in an abandoned recording studio. The control room contained several pieces of unidentified electronic equipment and appeared to have been thrown into considerable disarray. The door to the studio was barred from the outside. The studio itself contained 1189 and a single, badly decayed corpse. Attempts to identify the corpse have been unsuccessful. Though SCP-1189 had been previously contained on site, an attempt was made to transport it by constructing a soundproof steel box around the estimated center of 1189 and transporting the box. The attempt was successful, with no trace of 1189 remaining in the original location, and all readings within the box remaining identical to those taken before transport. All contents of the recording studio were destroyed. Alright, Experiment 1. Dr. Blank. On blank blank blank. The box containing SCP-1189 was placed in a soundproof room and all air was evacuated from both the room and the box. Subject D-13-1 entered the room wearing a Type 5 containment suit and opened the box. 1189 was immediately heard through the suit's headset, affecting the personnel in the control room overseeing the test, including Dr. Blank. Dr. Blank opened the airlock and attempted to record the sound before being neutralized by security. All personnel within earshot of 1189 were affected, with symptoms decreasing with distance from 1189. Upon psychological evaluation of personnel within extreme range of 1189, they reported growing increasingly agitated as they attempted to remember what they had heard, playing random notes and experimenting with audio software in an attempt to recreate it. Such personnel were terminated. Addendum 1. On blankety blank blank at 5:23 in the morning, analytical software monitoring 1189 detected a pattern. At 6:04, a recording of 1189 was broadcast over emergency loudspeakers to all of floor 27. Emergency security personnel were alerted but were also affected upon reaching the floor. The broadcast continued until standard and emergency power to the entire floor had been cut, resulting in a loss of containment for 3 other SCPs, including SCP Blank. Emergency containment crews disconnected all loudspeakers and restored power to the floor. All readings from within 1189's containment had ceased, and 1189's absence was confirmed using disposable dudes. Upon further investigation, it appears that a computer running the analytical program monitoring 1189 for patterns had generated a piece of malicious code that was implemented on the floor's computer network, allowing the recording of 1189 to be uploaded to the emergency broadcast system. Investigation into 1189's whereabouts is ongoing. Recommend immediate reclassification of 1189 to Euclid class. Okay, it's Euclid because they don't know where it is. That's interesting. And then that brings us to the universe simulator. But I'm looking at this, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So either the episode after next is going to be a little bit too short by me not including SCP-1200 in it, or I do include SCP-1200 in it, and then we end that episode with a little taste of Factory, which if that is not about the Factory, then I don't know what it could possibly be about. Anyway, Universe Simulator. Which is safe, somehow. Okay. SCP-1190 is to be contained in a secured, temperature-controlled observation room. This observation room must provide accommodations for long-term living to include a cot for sleeping, a restroom, and a food preparation area. Video surveillance equipment is to be installed outside the observation windows to record the device's output, as well as any input provided by one. All recordings from the surveillance equipment are to be permanently archived for study. A nurse or nurse assistant must be available to care for one. Nurse duties include delivery of food, bathing, feeding, application of medicine, administration of intravenous feeding systems, and other tasks necessary for the care of a potentially severely disabled person. Personnel are not to interact directly with 1190 except for disposable dudes cleared to be used as test subjects. Any disposable dudes to be used for testing 1190 are to be cleared with site administration for a stay of execution during the course of the experiment. Procedure update following Experiment 1. The floor of the observation room must have a central drain for eliminating waste. Procedure update follows Experiment 2. 1190 is to be powered at all times with backup batteries and a diesel generator in case of power failure. Alright. Description: SCP-1190 is a 1973 Hewlett-Packard 3000 computer system. Installed on the device is a program which performs a physics simulation, beginning with the known origins of the universe. Observation of the simulation suggests that it is capable of simulating physical phenomena beyond our current understanding. While running the program, 1190 exhibits an inexplicably powerful processing capability, an anomaly which does not persist while the device performs other tasks. Attempts to decompile the program or to move it to a different device have failed. The program appears to be corrupt to all observations and actions beyond running it on 1190. Aside from its anomalous performance characteristics and the inexplicably accurate logic used by the simulation, the only other notable physical characteristic of 1190 is that it is unusually well maintained for its age. Otherwise, it appears to be a normal example of a computer of its make and model. When the program is executed on SCP-1190, the screen displays "Press Enter to begin." Any individual who activates the program stored on 1190 will become fascinated with the simulation. The individual will want to intervene in the development of the virtual universe to cause it to proceed according to the individual's personal ideals. The individual is designated 1. Over time, one will become more obsessed with the simulation, increasingly neglecting personal needs in favor of managing the virtual universe. Sounds like playing a game of Civilization, to be honest. Documentation of known commands can be obtained with consent from at least one personnel having clearance level 2-1190 or greater. However, the documentation is believed to be far from complete. Each new subject intuits new commands over time, and while video of the subject's input and the observable results on the simulation have been archived, the exact effects of commands haven't yet become clear. History: SCP-1190 came to the attention of the Foundation via an asset embedded in the Security Department of Blank Laboratories. On blankety-blank, a janitor at Blank Laboratories reported to security that an unpleasant smell was coming from a disused office. In the office, the responding security officer found a researcher who was thought to have been missing for several weeks, hereby designated SCP-1191-A, operating 1190 and surrounded by days of her own refuse and waste. 1A had at some point brought several days' worth of food and water to the office, but only a small amount of water remained. 1A displayed symptoms of Stage 3 starvation, flaking skin, thinning hair, and insufficient strength to sit up properly. However, 1A was still operating 1190 while muttering inaudibly. The security officer attempted to administer aid, but 1A was uncooperative until the officer disconnected power to 1190. 1A became violent and attempted to attack the officer, but because of the aforementioned symptoms was easily subdued. 1A expired from systemic infection secondary to starvation while being rushed to the hospital. 1190 was taken into containment by the Foundation on blankety-blank. So there's a transcript of the video, and then there's also some experiment logs. I don't know why my computer just lagged. Alright, so. Blank, is that you? Ugh, it stinks in here. Are you okay? Holy expletive redacted. Your hair! Your skin! What happened to you? SecOps, we need a medical on floor blank, office blank immediately! Ugh, what the hell are you sitting in? Stay with me, girl! Inaudible. Officer attempts to remove 1A from the terminal, but she resists. Hey, what's going on here? You need help! Let me help you! Officer waves a hand in front of 1A and gets no response. Officer then unplugs 1190 from the wall. You've got to focus! Stay with me! You killed them! Murderer, you killed them all! 1A attempts to lunge at the officer, but lacks the strength to stay upright and collapses. 1A claws at the officer's legs. What are you doing? You've got to hold still. Ow! Hey, I'm here to help you! The officer restrains 1A with a pair of handcuffs. Psychops, you better get a stretcher up in here, something with restraints. I just found blank. She's delirious and in bad shape. Billions! You killed billions! They needed me! I gave them paradise and you killed them! Monster! Alright. Excerpts from Experiment Log 1. Disposable Personnel 11593 is a 53-year-old Caucasian male. A former network administrator, he is a sociopath convicted on 6 counts of torture and murder in the first degree. Hereafter referred to as 1B, was selected for this experiment due to high scores on computer aptitude tests. Day 1, locked in the observation room with 1190. Instructed to begin the simulation and to keep a diary during the experiment, given no further instructions. Day 2, spent 2 hours tending to the simulation. Excerpt from diary. They're making me run some kind of simulation, it seems. So far, all I can see are a bunch of white pixels moving away from each other. I can make them move a little faster or a little slower, but that's about it. Day 7, 8 hours tending to the simulation. The stars, they have planets! I figured out how to start a chain reaction in a star that makes it supernova and take a bunch of planets with it. Maybe if I fast forward enough, I can find one with some playthings. Day 12. 1B spent 14 hours tending to the simulation. The rest of the day was spent sleeping and eating with no recreation. Another excerpt from the diary. I found another planet with some life starting. I shouldn't have broken the last planet with life. It took me too long to find another one. This time I think I'll be more subtle and see how much a life form can take before it just can't live anymore. Day 20. Spent 18 hours tending to the simulation, 8 at the terminal, leaving only to sleep and use the restroom. Excerpt from the diary. I figured out how to keep the creatures I created alive, even when most of them just want to die. The young ones cry and shake from the pain, but as they get older, they seem to get used to it. I have to figure out a way to change up the pain as they get older so it'll never end. Day 42. 1B spent 20 hours tending to the simulation, 8 at the terminal, and only left the simulation to use the bathroom. Fell asleep for 4 hours at the desk. Upon waking up, subject displayed some anxiety by having drifted off. When instructed to write in the journal, 1B became agitated and had to be threatened with an electric prod before complying. The last of the creatures from Planet 7 died off today while I was asleep. I should have been there so it wouldn't have been so quick. Now they're making me spend more time away from the universe to write this entry. Who knows what else I'll miss? I suppose I was getting bored anyway. They can only scream so much. I think this time, I'll make the life on planets 12 and 13 evolve so they're perfect for killing each other. Then open up a wormhole between the planets and see who wins. Day 84. 1B spent 24 hours tending to the simulation. The subject no longer eats independently and has been placed on intravenous feeding. The nurse has to give the subject sponge baths, and a drain has been installed on the floor so waste can be flushed. In addition, the nurse has been instructed to regularly manipulate the subject's extremities to mitigate complications from long-term immobility. When instructed to write in the journal, subject remains unresponsive even if shocked with electric pod. Transcript of surveillance video. No, it can't be over this soon. I know. I'll bring him back. Let him find out again. 1B suffered from a pulmonary embolism resulting from a deep vein thrombosis. Subject began to have trouble breathing and started coughing. The research assistant on duty called for the nurse, who was off duty, and took nearly 30 minutes to respond. By the time the nurse arrived, the subject's symptoms had transitioned to bloody coughing and collapse. Before losing consciousness, 1B rendered the simulation unusable by bringing about the destruction of the virtual universe. 1B was transferred to medical, where an anticoagulant was administered, but 1B expired from sudden cardiac death. Transcript of surveillance video. 1B begins exhibiting trouble breathing, including wheezing and coughing. Research assistant doctor. Hey, what's going on with our guy? Get the nurse to check him out. Approximately 30 minutes elapse before 1B begins coughing up blood. What's happening? Posture becomes limp during onset of collapse. The nurse arrives and is cleared to enter the observation room. I can't leave them alone. If I go, they're coming with me. We've got... I can't say that. Hemoptysis and cytosis? We need to get him to medical immediately. Passes out. Nurse was reprimanded for responding to a priority 3-page in excess of 10 minutes. Video of this incident is under consideration for staff training purposes. Experiment 2. Disposable 14899 is a 37-year-old Hispanic female. A former professional artist, she was convicted on 2 counts of murder after one of her art pieces was vandalized. Dang. Hereafter referred to as 1C, she was selected for this experiment due to artistic background. Day 1. She was locked in the observation room with for 1190, instructed to begin the simulation and to keep a diary during the experiment, given no further instructions. Day 2. Spent 1 hour tending to the simulation. This place is like so many other prisons, and yet unlike them. I heard sounds, or maybe I didn't, in the other areas. Had strange feelings, ideas came into my mind, inspirations. I want to paint them, but I can't. All I have is this diary and some computer showing dots. Day 4. She spent 2 hours tending the simulation and 6 hours sketching in the diary. Subject's request for assorted art supplies denied. I tried. I tried to get the ideas out, but I can only do so much with a pencil. The only other thing in here to look at is that computer, and all I can do is move around in space. If only there were some colors to look at. Day 9. She spent 12 hours tending to the simulation. The rest of the day was spent writing extensive diary entries, eating, and sleeping. This is amazing! It's the world's biggest, most perfect canvas, but it's more than that. I can shape galaxies into flowers, and those into gardens. I can paint the horizon of a beautiful purple moon with stars that change colors as the planet rotates. It's sculpting and painting and music and dance all at once! Day 21, she spent 20 hours tending to the simulation, eats meals at the terminal, and leaves only to use the restroom to sleep for 2 hours and to make entries in the diary. I created the perfect woman. Tall, beautiful, unusual, and yet familiar. She seems motherly and yet distant. Her children are unformed pieces of clay with endless possibility. She recognizes their potential and is proud, but still cries when I transform them. It is beautiful. Some people can sculpt what they feel, but only I can literally sculpt using raw emotion. Day 30. She spent 23 hours tending the simulation, eats meals at the terminals, and leaves only to use the restroom and to make entries in the diary. Art can mean so much more when you're not bound by rules. I can make a line of colors that didn't exist until I invented them, that goes on from one end of the universe to the other, and it will never move or fall down. I reshaped the structure of carbon to make shapes I could never have thought of in my wildest dreams. Day 31. A breach of containment by SCP Blank caused an extended power interruption when powered down 1190. After a momentary delay, 1C became violent, attempting to destroy objects in the room other than 1190. Security had to enter the observation room to contain the outburst. 1C is currently restrained in medical. Class A amnestics were administered, but the subject continues to exhibit symptoms similar to sustained withdrawal, including depression, anxiety, fatigue, and nausea. Subject indicates that she undergoes persistent cravings for an unidentifiable fix. And Test 3. Subject, disposable 1719, is a 67-year-old Caucasian male with moderate obsessive compulsive disorder manifesting in a compulsion to place objects into certain patterns. He was convicted on 1 count of arson, resulting in the deaths of 9. Hereafter referred to as 1D, was selected for this experiment due to a unique concept of organization. Day 1, he was locked in the observation room, given instructions to begin the simulation and keep a diary. No further instructions. Day 2 spent 1 hour. Nothing is where it should be. The cot is on the north wall with the head facing east. And then there's this computer. The dots are all wrong in every way. I want to get in there and fix them so badly. Day 3. 1D suffered from a sudden embolic stroke. Because the stroke occurred while the nurse was on duty, the subject was able to be transferred immediately to medical. Reports indicate that the subject has been stabilized and that partial recovery is likely. However, some damage to the ventral striatum is likely to be permanent, which may affect the subject's long-term behavior. Day 8. He is released from medical and subjected to a full psych evaluation. Reports indicate that he no longer feels compulsion to reorganize objects. Day 9. He is placed back into the observation room for 1190. Spent no time tending to the simulation. Things which used to seem so significant don't anymore. Nothing really motivates me like it used to. Day 10. No time on the simulation. Day 17. No time on the simulation. Subject appears to be immune to the compulsion to interact with 1190. Subject's stay of execution will be revoked and subject will be remanded to General Foundation custody. Experiment log blankety blank blank. With SCP-1190-1-D's brain damage, it appears that 1190 no longer is able to exert a compulsive effect on the subject. While some might call this experiment a failure, it presents a heretofore unavailable opportunity to let the simulation run its course without intervention. The results of this pure simulation could be very interesting. I hope they come back around to say more about that. This was last edited on March the 5th, 2020, 536 days ago. So, maybe something will come of that. But in any case, that about does it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next one, we're going to check out Criminal Past, Timmy, Buried Giant, Damaging Toy Horse, and Child Storybook. If you like this video, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you'll need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads. I don't have one of those little charts handy to show what amount of my viewers are subscribed and which aren't. I think only like 11% are subscribed or something. I don't know. I can't make you do it if you don't want to. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.